When fans leave the theater, what's the first scene that you think that they'll think about?
The firefighting scene, I think people will enjoy, and the final boss scene with, I guess, I don't know if we can talk about this. The final boss fight, I guess, is pretty fun and pretty epic.
I think it might be the first scene
Mm.
in the hotel room with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think makes this story stand out the most?
I think that it just feels like a true heroine story. I think you really root for Asia, and you want her to win. And also, I think you're sort of also emotionally invested with her sister, the relationship she has with her sister. And so you feel, besides like, I want you guys to get out alive, I think there's sort of, I want you both to bond and get out alive. And so I think audiences will leave with, that like mom, protector, warrior spirit, hopefully.
I think that the archetype of the hero, through movies, it's like, it's hard won their skills. And you see that in Asia, like she's been through a lot in her life by the time she gets here. And her life is complicated. And that's also what you see with the most interesting heroes. And she's there and you want a hero who has the goods that you can believe in, that you believe in their capacity. And she proves it throughout this movie over and over again, that she has trained herself as a human being to almost be superhuman.
Who's the real villain in this movie, the cult or human nature?
I think that this cult preys on human nature, the weakest part of human nature. Sex addiction, desire, money, materialism, me, what do I get? Dehumanizing other people. The lowest forces of the human nature, this cult preys on and feeds into and enables.
Yeah, I feel like, our lowest selves is what creates this kind of environment. Or, your character, for example, having felt marginalized herself at some point is also what drove her into this world that felt superficially safe, to a degree. And I think that, kind of how others are treating you is also, for Myhala's character, Maria, it's also what leads her to this cult is the world was difficult for her. And so this out of all the spaces in the world was the safest space. And so I think it's about how we treat each other, which is ultimately sort of what the film is about.
And I think it's kind of important to say that, bad guys or bad circumstances don't ever come to you. Like, look how bad this is.
No.
They always lure you with good.
Yeah.
They always lure you with understanding. They always lure you with what you need, what seems good. And then they mix in this other thing that is very much not good.
Yeah, it makes me think a lot of like abusive or manipulative relationships, where I think people often think like people will come into something and immediately overt abuse in whatever format begins. And people, I think, don't realize that this is often this slow trickle, and then how codependency forms, and then to exit whatever format that relationship takes in, whether it's like with a boss or with a romantic or with a friend or whatever, to leave that is so much harder because it's much more complex than just bad. And I feel like this is also sort of a similar thing. Although this is pretty bad, I'm sorry. But